Okay, so rolling on, what we're going to do today is nervous system pathology. And I told you that past couple days we're going to have a guest speaker. Oh my goodness gracious, it's Dr. Kate. We have a guest speaker. So Dr. Kate is here to talk to us a little bit about her personal experience with a very specific nervous system pathology. So I'm going to let her tell you about it. And I want you to listen close to some of the physiology that we talked about this week and see if you kind of can maybe take a guess on what's happening microscopically. Cool? Rock and roll.
Okay, so I feel like I have to like step on stage so I can be like on video. This sucks.
Well, Brandon's there watching.
Hey, Brandon. Okay, so every once in a while I might have to stop and grab some water because these I hate them. Y'all do too, I'm sure. So so I'm here to talk to you about my nervous system, or not nervous, my immune deficiency, whatever you want to call it. I have multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a disease that is not curable. It is can be very progressive. I have the least progressive form. I have relaxed remitting. I don't know if you watch TV. I know a lot of you are on Hulu and Netflix and things like that, but you'll see a lot of commercials recently for the medication I'm on. It's called Ocrevus. And when you have MS, it can, eats away your muscles and things like that. So you can get to the point where you're not able to walk or have any of your body functions as well. You can also lose some of your mental capacities as well. So I have relaxed remitting, which means that mine is the slower for progression, which is good for me. That hopefully I will not end up in the wheelchair or something like that. So I am, let me tell you about how it came about for me to be diagnosed. In 1999, none of y'all were born by then, were you? No, okay. In 1999, I started having some symptoms. And it was my first year I was teaching. And my symptoms were that my right hand, I started having double vision. Look at that. I started having double vision in my left eye. And I went to the doctor and they didn't see what was going on. I think they thought I was making it up because they couldn't see that I was having double vision and things like that. I went to 3 different doctors before one eye doctor finally saw it. What was going on was when I was looking straight, I was good. Didn't have double vision. But if I would look, if you just turn your head, look to the left or look to the right, this eye was staying straight, and this one would cross. So this eye was not moving over when you would look over. So it was making me have double vision whenever I looked over. So they were finally able to find that and see that. So they gave me some steroids, and it cleared it up. Everything went away. They did mention in 1999 where they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. They did mention that double vision, of course, is one of the first symptom or a sign of multiple sclerosis. So at the time I was 23, and when they said, they think we might have MS, that really terrified me. I was 23. I didn't want to hear that I might have MS. And so they did an MRI as well. And my brain scans, everything came out great. So when you have MS, you have on your brain, you'll have things like, what do they call my brain?
Plaques.
Thank you. You'll have plaques on your brain, and you'll see them, and you'll also have plaques you can go on your spinal cord as well. And it looks like little railroad tracks. And none of that came up, so they didn't think I had MS. So probably years later, I started having numbness in my hands, and it was very painful. And my husband would help, massage and rub my hand a lot. And I went to the doctor again, not even thinking MS. And they did some neurological tests on it, and they said everything's fine, nothing's wrong, and they couldn't really figure out why I was having numbness in my hand while I was in pain. Now, when I say numbness, it's like, when your hand or your foot's asleep, that's what it feels like all the time. And so at that time, they mentioned again, we want to test you for MS. Well, I got scared because I'm like, nah, I've already done that. I don't want to know. So they said, okay, we're going to go schedule you for MRI again. And I said, okay. So I went to go schedule it, and I just kept walking out the door. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. So I just left. And I'm like, I'm not going to get MRI. It's going to be, if I don't get the diagnosis, it'll go away, is what I thought. So I just learned to kind of deal with the numbness in my hand and just dealt with it, didn't worry about it. I think, was it my first year here, 7 years ago? My first year here, I was having a lot of issues with my leg. And when I would walk down the hall, I could barely, it was like it was very heavy and I had to kick it out to walk. And so they went to the doctor again, and they thought I had like trouble with my back. And so they said, let's x-ray your back, see if you got anything going on. Well, as soon as I went to the doctor, the back doctor said, we're going to send you to a neurologist. As soon as they said that, I knew what was going on. I knew that when they said we're going to send you to a neurologist instead, there's nothing wrong with your back, I knew right then what was happening, what they were going to say. So I went to a neurologist, and that's when they saw the plaques that were on my brain. And actually, I have a black spot on the right side of my brain. I don't know, now when they show you a black spot on your brain, you look at a brain scan, the sucker looks like that, this big, but probably there's no way it's that big. I really don't know how big it actually is, but it's very sizable. You can see it in my brain scans. And when you see plaques on your brain in your brain scans, it looks like white specks on your brain. So that's what it looks like for my brain. So like my very first graduation, you can see, if anybody watches it very closely, I'm walking in and I kept telling the student in front of me, the person, the chief marshal, and I was like, walk slow, walk really slow, because I couldn't walk very good. I was barely able to walk. And when I get up to the stage, I had like a little platform that would prop my leg up on because my leg kept going dead, going to sleep and dead on me or whatever. And after staying there, I couldn't get off the stage. My husband, actually, you can see him. Yeah, this is when graduation's at ECU, and you're not supposed to have any guests, but he was sitting off to the side, and you could see him help get me down the stage while everybody else was going off the stage like you're supposed to. Yeah, I don't do that. So anyway, so I got diagnosed, and they started me on an oral medication called Tecfidera. I was taking that twice a day. I had to take it exactly the same time, and like Mr. Tower would make fun of me because my alarm would go off. He's like, take your pill. So, it's, yeah, I mean, really, just, making light of it. Because, I don't really, like my friends would always, like, I have my dog that I used to have, he had a really back leg. And they would always call me Frank, because that's my dog's name. Like, do you want like Frank? Huh? And then when I got diagnosed with MS, they felt really crappy. They're like, oh, we're so sorry. But anyway, so, so that medication I was on for 2 years, and I started having flare-ups. Flare-ups are like when a new symptom would come. So like my hand totally, my hand totally on my left side, I was completely asleep all the time. It moved to my right side, and then it's also my left leg. So my left leg, if you ever notice when I walk, you'll notice sometimes it'll walk a little bit with a drag with it. The later in the week, you can see more, so it's harder for me to walk and go about. And I'm very clumsy. I'll stumble a lot or trip or things like that. Y'all probably never notice it because you don't really look at my feet or anything like that. So, let's see.
Take a pause.
Sure.
Okay. So let's think about what we know about the nervous system. There's something going on here that affects the function that we talked about. So let's brainstorm what could cause this numbness. What could cause numbness? What could cause these problems? Any ideas? Any thoughts? And on the chat too, if you have any thoughts, holler out as well.
Let's take a step back.
What can cause you to get sick? A virus, okay? Sound like a virus? Okay, but I'll say like an infection. So a virus or a bacteria definitely doesn't sound like a bacteria. Why? What do we usually do if we get a bacteria? Yeah, and it goes away and we're rocking and rolling, right? Viral, maybe a little bit, except for there just isn't a virus. What did we talk about yesterday when it came to a virus getting to the brain. Anybody remember that? We talked about, it might not have been yesterday, it might have been the day before. We talked about viruses and bacteria have a tough time getting to the brain because our body doesn't let them, right? I mean, it's a whole lot easier for viruses and bacteria to get into like your digestive system than, or your skin or your blood than it is to get to your brain. You have the blood-brain barrier, okay? So viruses, you would have heard about a virus if it did something like this. And you know, thoughts, it's got to be something else.
The signals aren't traveling fast enough.
Okay, so that switches gears a little bit to what's physically happening. What part of the nerve is going to stop that from happening? What part of the nerve is going to carry the signal?
Axon.
Everybody with me? Okay, we're talking about the axon. And what can, we talk about this a bunch. What can happen on the axon to make the signal not travel that fast? Demyelinating. Okay, very good. Okay, so something's going on here that's getting rid of myelin. So we kind of got to solve that mystery. So be thinking about that, and I'll let Dr. Kate finish up.
So with multiple sclerosis, it's a disease that they do not know the cause from it. They don't know if it's comes from a virus. They don't know if it's hereditary. They have it's very unknown about it. It does not affect one race or another more so. They do think it does, it is said that it does affect women more, but it's not as much. I mean, usually also people, when they hit their 20s, is when you'll start to have those symptoms and things like that. There are a lot of diagnoses actually do not hit the age until 40. So mine was a lot earlier than that. So probably about 2 years ago, because I started having flare-ups, like I said, that's new symptoms that happen. They put me on new medication, which is Ocrevus. So I go once every 6 months, and I get intravenous medication. So I'm hooked up for like 6 hours. So on those days, I'm not at school usually those days. And afterwards, I feel very weird. It's very hard to explain. You just kind of feel drained, wiped out. So after sitting there for 6 hours and getting all that stuff pumped in you, then your days is shot. So so for me, like right now, things that are big triggers for me is stress, which is very funny because when I was first diagnosed, my doctor asked me, you know, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a high school principal. He's like, no. I was like, I'm not quitting my job. And he's like, well, you really need to reconsider that. I'm like, no, I love my job. I'm not going to do that. So I try to help myself a little bit with that. And then heat is really bad for me as well. And I don't think that the staff really realizes here at Aiden-Griffin that I have, I think they don't know I have MS, but I don't think it really is like a reality because I never use it as a crutch or a disability. And I think that in my 6 years here at Aiden-Griffin, I had a really bad flare up at open house. And it's because I was outside for open house to drive through for a long period of time. And I couldn't hardly move. I was in tears. And I think that was like a reality for some people here because they're like, oh crap, she really has something going on. And I don't, because I've never really seen
I didn't know that happened this year.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Well, good. Not everybody, a lot of people saw it though. So for me with MS, I don't really use it as a crutch or anything. I just do what I do and don't worry about it. I take my medicine. I just go about my business. I feel personally that I can't live my life that, hey, I have MS, or I just don't. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. It's not the way I do it.
So do you, like, your medicine that you're taking, both the injection and the pills that you were taking, do you know what they're doing?
They are slowing down the progression. So there's no cure for MS. So it's to slow down the progression, so I will not become debilitating.
But those chemicals are going to what part of your body?
You mean what?
Like what is the, like, you might, I might be
Go ahead.
tripping you out.
Yeah.
But like, because it's the one thing we haven't mentioned with this, because it's not bacterial,
Right.
it's not viral. They don't know if it's genetic or or environmental,
Correct.
you know, where it comes from. So we're running out of things that could be doing this. Okay? And so this is one of the wildest things about pathology, is that there are things in your body that can hurt your body, but are actually meant to help your body. Anybody want to solve that riddle?
My hair doesn't grow anymore.
And probably from the medicine.
I've not had a haircut in over a year and a half.
What are things in your body that are cells in your body that are there to protect you from infection? What part of your body? Your immune system, your immune cells. Somewhere along the line, there are multiple pathologies, this one included, where your immune system gets flipped, and instead of attacking and destroying things that don't belong, start attacking and destroying things that do belong.
So, like, my immune system is shot. And so, with COVID, I'm a huge risk factor. But I'm here, because that's what I want to be.
And I don't know if the doctors tell you this or like whatever, but your immune system is shot because of your medication.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because the medication, what it's doing is it's shutting down those immune cells, and those immune cells, for some reason, have a taste for what you said earlier. What's the problem here? Yeah, myelin.
So also with multiple sclerosis, they have you take a lot of vitamin D and a lot of vitamin B as well because of your stuff. But
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Dr. Kate.
Yeah, sure.
Any questions or anything?
yeah, you have any questions for me?
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So we'll keep on rolling. So
I didn't tell you, I mean, I didn't do it in great detail this time.
you did great. Oh, you were perfect.
Huh.
No. So we're talking, and another thing too, you might see that the roly-poly cart.
Oh, yeah,
That's
there's a reason for that.
that's
It's not
kind of
just
a,
because I want to look cool, because I don't look cool, it's that really just so I can have the stability and I don't fall. That's the reason why I have it on the card.
But-
And y'all know, you know.
I use it as inspiration because doggone, I would have to be dying, and I know it's different now with the COVID, but I'm gonna come to work and I'm gonna work my butt off because I know Dr. Caden's here working.
I forgot one thing.
Go ahead.
Okay, so sorry. When you get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, it is horrible, okay?
Oh, the spinal tap.
Yeah, because they do a brain scan and they see it, but the final way to tell you that you have it is a spinal tap. So they go and they drain, fluids from your spinal cord. Oh my God. So when they do that, you get these things called spinal headaches. They are the worst headaches you could ever get. And the only way to get rid of it, well, first of all, when you have a spinal tap, you have to lay flat for 24 hours. Then, if you could possibly get spinal headaches, and you can get those like 2 or 3 days after you get a spinal tap. So I come back to work, and it was during summertime, and I'm like, the only way to get rid of a spinal headache is to lay flat. So like I'm working, and I'm like laying on the floor, and people are coming in, I'm like, well, I'll be okay, just give me a couple minutes, I'll be okay. And so, just the thing you have to do what you gotta do. So,
A lesser person would have been at the house 10 years ago and never come back. And Dr. Caden, I appreciate you. Thank you. All right, so multiple sclerosis is, well, you got it on your screen. I'm sharing it with the folks at home. Is one of your 4 things you want to talk about. Her presentation is classic. 20-year-old female starts with double vision and weakness. Why double vision? She kind of described what her eyes were doing, but why?
Because the nerves weren't operating at
The speed of the nerve to this eye was faster than the speed of the nerve to this eye. And so she was fine looking straight ahead, one vision, but as soon as that dart to the right, one eye was a little bit slower because there was less myelin there, because the immune cells were attacking the myelin. And it's very slow progression, which is good for us because we get Dr. Caden. But she's, if she wasn't taking that immune suppressing medication, it would have kept right on going and gotten weaker and weaker and weaker. So that is one of the things that's kind of scary about multiple sclerosis. You do take immune suppressing medication, which is good and bad. It's good because you're slowing down your immune system, which slows down the progression of the disorder, but COVID's out there, and the immune system is a little bit different. Questions on multiple sclerosis? She talked about the plaques in the brain. What she was talking about there is what they can see is they're looking at nervous system activity. And so because of the demyelination, because of the nerves that don't have myelin, you just have certain spots in the brain that are less active because they work around. It's kind of like if you have a rock in a stream. You have everything flow and you put the rock in the middle of the stream, everything's still going to flow, but it's not going to flow in that spot because the water knows it can just go around a whole lot easier. Same thing's happening in her brain and spinal cord. It's got spots that don't have much myelin. It's easier just to go around, and you have that darkened plaque-looking thing on an electrocardiogram or a MRI. Cool. All right, so that's multiple sclerosis. What I usually try to do, this is not, I mean, I use these words. I want to make sure everybody understands these words I'm talking about. Anatomy is structure. The heart, the lungs, the muscle, you know, it's this is here and this is here and this is here. Physiology, which is the other part of this class, is how it works. Physiology is the function. Pathology is the function when it's not working right. And so what I usually try to do, this class is not called Anatomy, Physiology, and Pathology. It's called Anatomy and Physiology, but I usually try to give about 1 day worth of pathology on each section, just to give you an idea of some big things you might see in the future if you do some healthcare type stuff. Some things I find really interesting are some things that really help us better understand the physiology. Because in my opinion, I think multiple sclerosis, and specifically her personal story about multiple sclerosis, really helps you understand how myelin works. Because it's not like she can't move, it's just that it feels kind of asleep, and she's got to do a little bit more to get that leg popped out there because the signals aren't going as fast. Okay. So what I usually try to do is try to get 4, 5, 6 pathologies that hit very, very different things. So we've dealt with multiple sclerosis. Let's go up to the top for spina bifida. Anybody, I mean, you can just look at the word and tell one thing. Has something to do with the spinal cord. Anybody familiar with it? Okay, spina bifida, sometimes called spina bifida occulta, depending on how it's a very, very wide range of how bad it can be. You can have spina bifida that is just this tiny little, well, what it is a neural tube defect. Okay, so neural tube is what is our spinal cord and brain before it's our spinal cord and brain during development in utero. Okay, your body has these embryological folds that fold around your neural tube, and they go from top to bottom. And if they don't close perfectly at the bottom, what you can end up with is some spinal cord that actually develops outside of your body. So that's what spina bifida is. Spina bifida is a congenital defect. It is a mistake of embryology, is the easiest way to say it. Now, the reason I bring it up is because it covers one category I like to cover, which is genetic pathology. It's in children, babies, newborns, and it is just about, I don't want to say the percentage because I don't know the exact percentage, but it is pretty doggone close to 100% preventable. And this is something that I always bring up to folks because there's no point in having spina bifida in 2020 if we have the knowledge. All you have to do to prevent this is to make sure that you have the correct level of folic acid in your body when you are with child. Okay? Now, what that means is, if you're a pregnant lady, you got enough folic acid in your body. How do you get enough folic acid in your body? You can eat some things, or you can do it a whole lot easier, which is take a pill, folic acid. Sell folic acid at the drugstore. It's in every prenatal vitamin. Now, here's the issue with that, though. When do you think is the most important time for the closure around the spinal cord? Early in pregnancy or late in pregnancy?
Like,
Because we're talking microscopic.
oh,
We're talking the closure of the spinal cord around the back as that spinal cord is forming. Early in pregnancy, first 4 weeks. Now, what can you tell me about the first 4 weeks of pregnancy? Go ahead. It's when the baby starts developing. But what can you tell me about the woman? Go ahead. Maybe they have some morning sickness, or maybe they don't. What am I trying to get at? Go ahead. Yeah, but what am I trying to get at? Maybe they have morning sickness, maybe they don't. You gonna walk up to a woman and be like, hey, are you 3 weeks pregnant? Are you?
no.
No, why not? Because you might see some weight gain, but if somebody's 3 weeks pregnant, you can't tell. And another thing too, if you're only 3 weeks pregnant, if you're in that 4 week window, you might not even realize you've missed a period. You might not even know you're pregnant. Okay? So we're talking about folic acid is really important. You need to take it, but you don't even know you're pregnant when you need to take it. Does that make sense? Okay? So here's the easy solution to that. Folic acid is also really cheap. If you're a woman of childbearing age, take folic acid. You with me? Do you understand? I mean, I'm not saying, oh, you might get pregnant. I'm just saying it's cheap. If you're a female of childbearing age, take folic acid. I think that's some really good advice, and we don't get it enough, because that way you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I need to start my pills now. No, you're already taking them and you're rocking and rolling. Make sense? Okay. All right. Next one is a weird one, and I know the word looks weird there on the table. It's Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, but nobody ever says Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. What they say is CJD. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is a very, very strange disease. It is a very, very scary disease, because normally when we think about infections, we think about two things: bacteria and viruses. Bacteria are pretty easy because, like Shamir said earlier, you could just shoot an antibiotic gun at them and we got a dead bacteria. Viruses are really, like, I know that we're all scared, we're all covered up over a virus right now, but viruses are fragile, man. Like, viruses, yeah, you can have one every once in a while that comes through and kills folks, but for the most part, I mean, viruses are all around us all the time, and our body's immune system just straight up wails on a virus. Okay, so viruses, okay, and also you have that blood-brain barrier where viruses and bacteria really don't get into your nervous system that well. So let's think about what a virus and a bacteria is. Bacteria is easy because it's a tiny, tiny little living thing, and a virus is a tiny, tiny little sort of living thing, except for it doesn't reproduce by itself, so it's not technically a living thing. A virus has two things. It has a protein that makes it shape, and it has some type of genetic material, DNA or RNA, which it injects in your genetic material and allows you to go on and do whatever it needs to do. CJD is caused by a prion. So it's like a virus, but not really, because it doesn't have any DNA or RNA. It's just a protein. It's just this infectious protein particle that invades your nervous system because it doesn't have the markers that your immune system would kill it, because it's just a piece of protein. And it invades your nervous system, gets inside of your nerve cells, changes shape, and destroys them. Now, you may have never heard of CJD, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, but you've heard of the cow version of it. Mad cow disease. Okay, mad cow disease was something that about 15 years ago was a really big deal. These cows in Europe and England started like walking around crazy and losing their mental functions, and it was because of these proteins that were changing shape in their body. a handful of people ate that tainted meat and came down with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. It is a very, very rare disease. We're talking less than one person in the world per year, but it is scary because you can't stop it because it's protein, and it is pretty quick death. Like these proteins just go in your brain, start destroying your brain cells, and start destroying your brain. And it's a pretty wild, scary thing, but very, very rare. Okay, CJD, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And the last one is I can't ever say it right. I think it's Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's French. But Guillain-Barré syndrome is something that I probably should measure myself of how I'm going to talk about it, because it is another autoimmune situation similar to multiple sclerosis, but it is usually an autoimmune response to an overreaction to a vaccine. So normally we take vaccines. You guys took vaccines like crazy. We talked about it yesterday that none of you guys had chickenpox because you took vaccines. You need vaccines. Don't go home and tell anybody Mr. Tyre said he's anti-vaccine. I am not. Okay? And when they come out with the corona vaccine, I'm going to be first in line. One of my friends from medical school is doing the coronavirus vaccine trial. And he posted a picture of his Band-Aid where he got the vaccine. And he was like, I hope I'm in the experimental group and not in the control group that got nothing. You know? Take your vaccines. That being said, every time we take a vaccine against a virus, we do stand that risk of our body overreacting to the vaccine and our immune cells being programmed, instead of to kill the virus that we're programming our immune cells to attack, they get programmed to start attacking your nerve cells. And that's what happens with Guillain-Barré syndrome. It could be as simple as paralysis in certain parts of your body, and it could be as complicated as getting sick and dying from that. So it's just another thing to kind of think about on top of that. But we could talk about neuropathology for hours and hours and hours, but we're not going to do that. All right. Questions on anything else? I'm going to end the video. Excuse me. Any questions from the video?
No.
All right. Thanks for being here, Brandon. Thanks for being here, Cheyenne. Miss Gherkin's already went on home, but we got your cranial nerve stuff to sharing on Monday. You guys are all going to be at home, so if you have something you want to share with me, you can share it with me, and I will click through the video or click through the people's